Musings to the Muse. We sit there staring at each other, constantly turning or facing one another, like two sides of a coin, like we were almost adjoined. Then I go to open my mouth, and it's your voice that comes out, all blooming and bold, all ancient and old, like a forgotten forest full of trees. Your voice, wild, flows through me, and while the words are still my own, you've shown you hold dominion. This is your throne. This one is called Campfire. Sit around and watch the smoldering, flames bound around, lighting the space, huddled under the stars, bellies full as they can be, pork and smoke in the air, stars overhead, and I can't see your faces until the flames reveal them again. We sit around and recount the ways life felt astray, and that night I felt connected to you in the strangest way, as the flames had you phasing in and out like a ghost. Could have been the fire, but night is a time of secrets. Could have been the fire, but darkness is a time of secrets, and we spoke of them in hushed tones in the downtime between the looks that revealed us. Darkness that night was our shade, and we hid it the best we could. This one is called Hunt. With the moon overhead, you cast your spells. You were hunting that night, so you put on your best gear, words from down your tongue, the right ones. You were inside, and you could smell the cologne, heady. You could still taste the fire in your belly. It was time to make your move. You pounced. This one is called What We Do in the Shadows. We hide, we touch, we love too much. We drink, we sup, we fill our cup. We sing, we dance, and then we prance. We play all day and never pray. We'll never pay, just lay and lay until we are flayed. Or will the righteous come for me, or will they let me just go free? This one is called The Day Darkness Took Over. I reached out to the void. I was lonely then, lonelier than I ever was before. The dark had already crept in at that point, I think, so I told myself I was only doing what was natural, came naturally. I found the void, and it was lovely, comforting, fun, just like playing Russian roulette, fully loaded gun. And then the void reached out to me, bathed me in the dark, covered me in the veil. Enshrouded in my armor, I was free. I traveled wherever, did whatever, saw just enough, lived life rough. And honestly, if you really must know, there was a sort of peace there. Control over the things that mattered. The heart isn't protected. The heart isn't protected. The heart isn't protected. And the best part was, I was free. The heart was not protected. The heart was not protected. The heart was not protected. But the consequences continue to be. The heart was never protected. The heart was never protected. The heart was never protected. But the consequences continue to be. All right, so this one is called Alright, so this was called When the Sun Sets. When the sun sets over the ocean and there's no light to be seen, I'm probably somewhere with my little lantern trying to protect my little light beam. And my little light beam goes out, and it most definitely will, I'll try to be the beam myself until I also go nil. And when I do run out of light, I'll fight to the very end. But when the dark comes crashing in, don't worry about me, friend. I'll be safe and sound in my new home, just taking in the blight. I'll be safe and sound, don't worry, friend. Dark, after all, is just the absence of light. Alright, welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Let me just get set up here with my little screen set up over here. Alright, welcome back to the podcast, everyone. This will be episode 9 of the podcast. I believe last week was 8, but let me just double check that real quick. It's not even all that bad. Oh no, it's episode 10. Wow, we made it 10 episodes in. Everybody give yourself a round of applause. Everyone. A round of applause, everyone. We made it. Episode 10. 1-0 double digit episode. This is the cause for celebration, huh? And you know what the best way to celebrate is right now that I can think of that I can give to you right now? I've been talking about it for a while now, but I think we're ready to talk about Dark. Upon reading it, upon reflecting a bit more, it's not as horny as I thought it might be. I mean, nothing I write is particularly, outright, horny, but this is probably the closest I get to writing anything that is even remotely in the fashion that I have to talk about, sex. It's sexy time, everyone. Alright, so let's jump right into it. Alright, so I'm gonna put the obviously I'm gonna put the if you listen to the poem at the beginning of the episode, and the words on the page will be there too. So you already heard it. One thing I have to say about the poem and the recording is that I basically did it at night so that I can pick up the audio of like outside. Like I wanted to kind of feel like it was recorded outside. So I don't know if you get that impression at all when you listen to it, but it's definitely kind of like I wanted to feel like it was outside. I didn't do any audio editing or anything. I think I might have bumped it up a bit because it was kind of soft when I was recording it. But actually, no, I don't even think I did that. I think I just read through it. And it kind of gives you that feeling like you're outside because I had my audio all the way up. It was nighttime, so you could hear like cars. I think there's like one point where you could hear like a car driving by, something like that. And I don't think it was too bad. I thought it kind of like added a nice touch to like the outsideness of the piece itself. But yeah, let's just jump into the poem itself. Campfire. It starts with campfire. So campfire is really like just the idea behind campfire is that you're sitting outside, you're hanging with your people. There's a campfire going. Obviously, you're sitting around a campfire, so it's late this night. You're grilling, and you're all just kind of looking at each other, kind of like relaxing, kind of just chatting it up. And at some point, you know, you just start talking about, things that you wouldn't normally talk about in the daytime. And I feel like nighttime is definitely, I mean, I said it, like, nighttime is a time of secrets. And I think that's pretty true. You do things in the night that you can't really necessarily get away with in daytime just because, it's dark, under the cover of night. You may act a bit differently at night than, let's say in the daytime when it's bright, and you might operate a bit differently at night, and that kind of starts you off for the piece, I'd say, is that you kind of get the sense that we're going to be talking about secrets. We're going to be talking about stuff that doesn't really come out in the daytime. We're going to be talking about moving silently, quietly, maybe even a bit sneaky. Sneaky is a word, right? That's a real word that people use sometimes. So yeah, kind of like a sneaking. Could have been the fire, but darkness is the time of secrets, and we spoke of them in hushed tones in the downtime between the lick that revealed us. I do like the imagery of this piece too, that you can kind of like see what's going on in this piece. You know, flames bound around, lighting the space, huddled under the stars. It's very like a visual kind of like description of what's going on. You can see multiple people sitting around a campfire, and the flames are kind of flickering, and it's the only light that you have is the campfire light. So that's why the piece is important. They call it campfire because the only light you have is campfire. Everything else is dark surrounding you. And the idea of it is that, you know, you kind of just hanging out with your boys and telling secrets to each other at some point, you know. And it's like, it's easy to talk. I would say it's easier to talk when no one's able to see you. So the idea behind this, the concept is that you're talking when you're not in the light because no one can see you, so it's easier maybe to speak on stuff when it's not, nobody's looking at your face, you know? So it's like the people who are speaking are the ones who are in the shadows. And we spoke of them in hushed tones in the downtime between the licks that revealed us. So we're speaking in the downtime between the licks that revealed us, which means that we're not speaking during the licks that revealed us, which means that we're speaking from the dark. So it's kind of like the idea that the shadows are, you know, there's a lot of shadows and darkness at play here, and the light flickers, and you maybe won't speak when people can see your face. You're not going to say anything because you don't want to. You know, you're just kind of relaxing. But like I said, it's easier to talk maybe, and it's easier to kind of like express yourself in the dark when nobody can see your face. Like face-to-face conversations are a lot more personal. And not that this is not this would be a very personal experience if it did happen, you know. But at the same time, I would find that it's much more easy to speak. And you know, it's not like anybody. This is supposed to give you an indication that these are like a group of friends who, you know, very good friends who are just kind of hanging out in the woods, kind of just chatting it up one night. You know what I mean? And if you've ever been there, you could probably tell, you know, there's probably a bottle of whiskey open somewhere along the line. You know, people just hanging out, pork and smoke in the air. I like whiskey, so when I think about smoke, I think about barbecue, I think about fire, I think about whiskey. So all those three things kind of give me the impression of kind of like smoke when I think about them. So that's just in my head, though. There's no indication that I'm talking about whiskey there, I think. Pork and smoke in the air. If you really want to say anything about it, I would say pork and smoke in the air. Pork is a food, so you can maybe draw the idea that smoke is talking about a drink of some sort, but not necessarily. I wouldn't go out of my way to say that. But when I think about smoke, like I said, I think about barbecue, I think about fire, and I think about whiskey, because that's it. I'm a sommelier, so I've sold whiskey. One of my favorite stories actually is that I was working at a wine shop in downtown Manhattan, in Alphabet City, and wouldn't you know it, Julia Stiles walked in, and I sold a bottle of whiskey to Julia Stiles. She came in looking for a bottle of whiskey for a friend who liked whiskey, and she was like mad chill, you know, and it's like, you know, it's like Julia Stiles. Is that Julia Stiles? Like, yeah. So I asked, I touched her ID too. I just, you know, you guys card people, right? Part of the job is carding people, especially, you know, Julia Stiles. She looks like a baby, you know, she looks like a baby face. So That's one of my favorite memories from working in New York City at all. But yeah, apparently she lived somewhere in. She had a place in Alphabet City, and she came in, and I sold her a bottle of Hudson whiskey baby bourbon. I think that's what she bought. If my memory serves me correctly, she bought the baby bourbon, which is a really good bottle of whiskey. It's also kind of expensive, but you gotta mark it up a bit. You're not gonna go and it's like $60 for a half bottle. At least when I sold it to her, it was $60 for a half bottle. But it's like premium stuff. You know what I mean? If you're paying $60 for a half bottle, then it's premium stuff you're getting out of that. Yeah, that's kind of one of my favorite memories of being in the field at all. But yeah, it's a whiskey story, so that makes sense. That's where we got to that, and we're gonna bring it back now to the actual thing that we're talking about. Campfire. Campfires are fun. It's kind of like a fun thing to just kind of hang out and talk to people around campfire. If you've never done it, I would say try it. It's a lot of fun, and it kind of gives you. There's definitely a different vibe than being inside a table. It's definitely a different vibe that you look at from talking at a campfire. But yeah, I just try it. Light a campfire, call your friends over, just hang out, drink some whiskey, drink some brewskis, drink some whiskey and some brewskis, but don't drink too much. I'm not saying you should overindulge, and in fact, I recommend you don't overindulge at all. It's never a fun time when you wake up and you're just like, oh wow, how much did I drink last night? I don't know. Can't remember. If you can't remember how much you drank last night, it's probably you drank too much. Right? Right? Um yeah, I think that's kind of just of it, and just kind of sets you up for the vibe of the overall piece. I think kind of like an introduction to kind of maybe what we're talking about here, which is the secrets. And dark is going to be about secrets and nighttime and maybe moving quietly, and just kind of in that essence of you know secrets. Um, if I had to say anything about it, I would say it's a lot about secrets and a lot about sex. But sex is kind of like a secret thing sometimes. It really shouldn't be, but sometimes it has to be. Sometimes you don't want people in your business. You know, people are kind of weird about it. I'm not weird about it. I don't think I'm weird about it, but I think people are kind of definitely very, very weird about it a lot of times in a lot of different ways, especially in America, especially in certain places in America. You know where you are, you know who you are. Um, if you're weird about it, if you know people are weird about it, look at your location, see where you're at. How small is your town? How many people live there? Where's it located at? I just went straight to town. I didn't even say city. Did I say city? No, I didn't say city. I said town. I said, where's your town at? Where's your town at? Where do you live? What state do you live in? What area of the country do you live in? Geographically speaking, you know, and we'll go from there, and that might determine a lot of how you feel about it, and you know, it is what it is. I mean, people are raised in a certain way, and it's very hard to break out of that. The paradigms that are installed in us at a very young age are very, very hard to break. Like you got to go out of your way to break out of that. You have to a lot of times just re-educate yourself on a lot of different things, just to break out of those deep held, ideas and beliefs and core values. Even for some people are tied to, sex, and that's crazy. Sex is a biological action. You know, the human brain tells you to do it, so it's just about it's the biology of it. It's not like you can control it sometimes, even right, right. Hey, not in that way. I don't mean like a forced sexual. I mean, like, if you have a genuine attraction to somebody and they're genuinely attracted to you, sometimes it's just gonna happen, and there's not a lot you can do about that, I think. Um, yeah, let's move on. Let's go to hunt. Hunt is about hunting. With the moon overhead, you cast your spells. You were hunting that night, so you put on your best gear. Word from on your tongue. The right one. we're talking about hunting here. We're literally talking about hunting on hunting prey, you know, if you will. Sometimes, you know, you gotta do some work. You gotta do some work sometimes to get laid. That's what this is about. You know? You're going out on a date, you know, and you may be a bit more aggressive sometimes, but hey, it works. It works out sometimes. That's all I really have to say about it. I mean, I think the poem's pretty straightforward. It's kind of you're telling a story about hunting. It's not about anything else besides hunting, right? You were inside and you can smell the cologne. I think this one is mostly going to be about the words itself and how I tell that story about hunting. I said these are all stories here. This is definitely a storytelling right now. It's all about the story that we're trying to paint about, you know. So that one is about hunting, and I think we'll get deeper into that one in part 2 of the podcast today when we talk about the actual words on the page. But that one's basically about, you know, just kind of just hanging out. But I think it's very straightforward. So, in terms of like theme, I think it's very straightforward what I'm talking about there. Right? We're literally talking about you going out, you want to get laid, you gotta get laid, so you're gonna do what you gotta do, right? Right? So, and you were inside, you can smell the cologne, Hetty. I think this is, and the idea is that I think you're supposed to get the idea here, and my understanding of it is that this is kind of like, I want to kind of get the impression that it's a female hunting a man as opposed to a man hunting a female, which, you know, may seem a bit more common. But I just want to give you the impression that it's a. I guess we can talk about that later when we get back to like the words on the page, because that's more tied to the words on the page. If you're just reading it, you might miss the kind of context that is there, without saying. Okay, let's get to this part. What we do in the shadows. This one's a lot of fun. It's kind of like a song, but not really. It rhymes, kind of. You know, we hide, we touch, we love too much, we drink, we suck, we fill our cups, we sing, we dance, and then we prance, we play all day and never pray and never play, just laying lay until we are flayed. Oh, will the righteous come to me? Oh, will let me just go free? So it's kind of like a song, kind of like one of those lullabies, kind of one of those, you know, in the style of kind of like a short, fun song. And this one is just talking about, you know, what happens when you know, hang out in the darkness sometimes, you know? What do we do in the shadows? Well, we hide, we touch, we love too much. Okay, well, that's definitely talking about, you know, more of a physical thing. We drink, we suck, we fill our cups. And then we're talking about eating, engaging. But I think, you know, I'm kind of just like that again to more like a physical aspect. It's a very physical thing. We drink, we suck, we fill our cups. We sing, we dance, and then we prance. Okay, that one's just literally that. Okay, we're definitely fucking here, right? We play all day and never pray. We never lay. We never pay. Just lay and lay until we are afraid. And that one is definitely talking about, you know, sex. And then, oh, will the righteous come for me? Or would they let me? So we're just, you know, it's kind of like a song out, you know. So I would say that's it. How we kind of determine that, like I said, the whole thing is about sex for the most part. So it's like it's very much how the how I think is more interesting here than what I'm talking about. I would say. So maybe that second part of the podcast is going to be a lot more interesting because I told you up front most of these are kind of about sex in some way, shape, or form. Now, so I think the idea behind it is that we're gonna get more interesting kind of chatter about it at the end of the second part of the podcast here, because like I said up front, all these about sex in some way, shape, or form. Now, then we kind of get into like the more interesting pieces thematically, I would say. The day darkness took over, and then the veil. These are kind of very, but the day darkness took over is literally. So this is what we're saying here. We're talking about kind of slipping up, if you will. I mean, a lot of slipping up occurred in my life at some point. And yeah, it all kind of happened like a very bad time for me. This was the worst of it, I'd say. Um, and yeah, I reached out to the void. I was lonelier than I ever was before. It's this piece is about letting go, definitely letting go, and not really caring anymore. You know, I found the void and it was lovely, something fun, just like playing Russian roulette, fully loaded gun. I love that line so much. Because at the end of the day, it's just very much what I was doing in that time period. I was just kind of out there in the world, pretty reckless. I'd say I was pretty reckless at the time. Not as reckless as I could have been, mind you. But I was definitely engaging in some reckless behavior. I would say reckless behavior. So I'm not a reckless person though. I'm really not. It's just you put a couple of drinks in anybody and you see what happens, right? See what happens when you put a couple of drinks in anybody. And like this time period of my life is kind of a lot of the reason why I don't drink right now. So that's kind of what this is about. This one is kind of like very much about letting go. The dark had already crept in at that point, I think, so I was told myself I was only doing what was natural came natural. And you see what I'm saying? It's kind of like the idea is that I'm definitely justifying what happened there. So this part, and when I use that word justify, we're gonna talk about that more in the next part because I think the veil is kind of like me coming to terms with that idea that I'm justifying what I do in the darkness, the day darkness took over. Um, and the void reducted me, bathed me in the dark, and covered me in the veil. And you can kind of tell that these are two pieces of the same. This is one continuous piece, maybe, that's broken up into. It's one story. It's two pieces, but one story. And you could definitely tell that this is maybe pretty personal. Um, and when I'm talking about the veil, I think the veil is probably the most interesting part of this, just because the way it's written and the way it sounds. Enshrouded in my armor, I was free. I traveled whatever and did whatever, saw just enough, lived life enough. And honestly, if you must know, there was a sort of peace there. And that first stanza is talking about the protection I gave myself, which is the veil. I put myself in the veil, and I was able to move through the darkness. But going back to that darkness theme again, because the veil is like a covering, kind of like a cloak almost. And when you're, and when the veil is, in the shrouded armor. You can kind of get the sense that I'm talking about kind of like a physical cloak that I'm covering myself in, and I'm moving through the darkness. But that means that you can't see me, you can't find me, and I'm just kind of just living, doing whatever. And I think that the imagery there, and I'm shrouded in my armor, I was free. The name of the piece is the veil. So I think you can kind of get that idea that I'm talking about, moving through the darkness unnoticed, right? If that makes sense. I feel like that makes a lot of sense. Control over the things that matter. The heart isn't protected. The heart isn't protected. The heart isn't protected. And the best part was, I was free. The heart was not protected. The heart was not protected. The heart was not protected. But the consequences continue to be. The heart was never protected. The heart was never protected. The heart was never protected. But the consequences continue to be. So that part is fairly interesting, I think, to me, because it's kind of like two voices in that part, right? It's kind of like control over things that matter, and then it's like a little whisper in the back. The heart isn't protected. The heart isn't protected. The heart isn't. Like that's like a whisper. You know what I mean? It's very much supposed to be like a whisper in the back of your head. Well, and so now you're sitting here. You're saying control over the things that matter. And then in the back of your ear, you hear the heart isn't protected, the heart isn't protected. Kind of like a warning, like a siren almost going on. And then you say the best part was I was free. The heart was not protected, the heart was not protected, the heart was not protected. But the consequences continue to be. So it's like you're kind of like two lines, two people, but one person. And it's just like a reminder that this happened, yes, but at the same time, is it something that could have been avoided, that should have been avoided? Probably yes. Probably yes. And I think control over the things that matter kind of saying, hey, I have control. I can do what I want to do. I said there's sort of peace there too, so I'm not feeling too bad at this point. It's just, the inside wasn't protected, but the outside is fine. The inside isn't protected, right? Like we're talking about, I'm shrouded in armor, and then we're going forward and saying the heart isn't protected. So that's like inside and outside, right? Control over the things that matter, the outside stuff, and then the inside is talking later on. The heart isn't protected. The heart is protected. The heart is protected. And the best part was I was free. So we're talking about inside and outside. The outside stuff is fine, but the inside stuff is what's hurting. And the inside stuff is kind of giving you a notification like, ding, 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 check engine light is on, ding, ding, ding. You turn on the engine and check engine light comes on. You got like a little beep on the console that you might be ignoring. You should probably check out, especially if you live anywhere where you have a car that you need to drive to work in. You should try it. Try to fix it. I know things are expensive right now. I mean, everything's expensive right now. I don't know how people live outside of big cities anymore in the USA because getting around is so expensive. You gotta carpool, you gotta do everything, bro. You live out there in the woods and shit. You gotta be carpooling right now. There's no way you can just drive your own car to work every day unless you got a lot of money coming in. You know what I mean? Ain't that crazy? You can't driving to work every day. Are you serious? That's so expensive. My friend drives like an hour. One of my friends, he lives in North Carolina. He drives to past the, I mean, he's very close to the Virginia border, mind you. But just going to a whole new state to work, that's crazy expensive right now. You know what I mean? It's just expensive to do stuff like that right now. So, yeah, I wouldn't do none of that at all right now. But yeah, let's get into the next piece. We'll get back to the words on the page. And this is literally like a rhyming poem, almost like a song. When the sun sets, I like this piece. It's very quiet. It's very nice, and it leads you into the last piece of the poem, which is light. And I think it does a very good job of that. When the sun sets over the ocean, there's no light to be seen. I'm proudly somewhere with my little lantern, trying to protect my little light beam. And when my little light beam goes out, and it most definitely will, I'll try to be the beam myself until I also go near. So that is saying there's no light. The sun is setting, right? And there's no light to be seen. I'm probably somewhere with my little lantern trying to protect my little light beam. And so, as it goes, sun sets every day. It's not an incredibly weird thing for the sun to set. But like I said, I'm trying my best. I got my lantern out. I'm gonna try my best to stay in the light. I'm gonna try my best. And when my little light beam goes out, and it definitely will, I'm gonna try to be the beam myself until I also go. Yeah. So it's like I have light, something producing light for me. When that runs out, I'm gonna try to be myself. I'm gonna try to be the beam myself. I'm trying to try, but I'm gonna run out of light at some point. I can't be luminescent forever. That's exhausting. First of all, it's exhausting. Second of all, it's a lot of work. Right? It's a lot of work. And we're talking about like when darkness sets in, we're talking about, sex. We're talking about having sex. We're talking about, that time period where, you're just kinda doing whatever, I would say. And the light is representative of, not being able to maybe do that as freely as you might want to. Right? So the corresponding ideas is light and dark. But dark, and we get into at the very end of it, you have light and it's slowly dwindling. The sun is setting over the ocean, so there's no light after a while. I have a lantern. Lantern's gonna give out at some point, and I'm gonna probably be the light myself. That's gonna run out as well. I'll fight to the very end, but when the dark comes crashing in, don't worry about me, friend. I'll be safe and sound in my new home, just taking the blight. I'll be safe and sound. Don't worry, friend. Dark, after all, is just the absence of light. And then you get that nice chord from that is reminiscent of the next piece, which was the one I spoke about last time I spoke about a poem, which is light. So I did these out of order because on the poem, dark is first. On the album, dark is first and then light, because it makes sense on the album. But in terms of explaining it, I think if you understood that light was kind of like about having someone in your life and being focused on that person, then you can kind of understand that dark is kind of the opposite of that. Now we're talking about, okay, well, dark is about kind of like just being able to move under the darkness of night. We're doing whatever we want at that point, right? And basically, we're just having sex whenever we want. This is what we're talking about. We're having sex whenever we want in the dark. So the light beam is like, it is what it is. But we're gonna run out of light. I'm gonna try to not be that person. But then the poem basically says, hey, don't worry about me. I'm okay. I've been here before. The sun sets over the ocean. We're talking about the sun setting. That happens every day. That's just a common thing. It's not a big deal to be in the dark, is what I'm saying. So, I'll be safe and sound in my new home, just taking in the light. I'll be safe and sound, don't worry, friend. Dark, after all, is just the absence of light. And that may seem scary to some people if you're afraid of the dark. Being in the dark might be scary, but I don't think I could. You could probably guess that I'm not afraid of the dark at all, nor in the sense of what we're talking about, sex, or in the sense of actually being outside in the dark or being alone in the dark. And it might be scary because you can't see, but that's more of a physical. Like I fear for my safety. In terms of like if I'm in the spot, it has nothing to do with it being dark necessarily. It's just about me maybe like if I'm out in the dark and New York City, and it's like a dark alleyway that I can't see down the alleyway, and somebody might be, lying in wait for me or something like that situation. Then I'd maybe be afraid. I would be cautious there. I don't think I would be afraid, but I'd be a lot more cautious there than I would be if I'm, just hanging out in the middle of the woods by myself. I wouldn't be afraid in that situation. I'd probably be thinking about something. If I'm out in the woods by myself and it's dark, I'm probably there thinking about some deep shit, whether it's deep shit, in sense of like the the philosophical sense of deep shit, or literal deep shit where I'm trying to fix a problem, or figure something out that needs to be fixed. Then it goes both ways. I think both those analogies kind of work if I'm out in the woods by myself. But definitely about the dark is that I'm not really afraid of the dark, and nor should anyone be afraid for me if I'm in the dark, because I've been there before. It's it's supposed to be it's supposed to be comforting for people. When the sun sets, like if you notice me missing, then don't worry about it because I'm comfortable. I'm safe. I know what I'm doing at this point. And yeah, that wasn't so bad actually. I didn't really get into like I didn't have to talk about, the nitty gritty details of what's happening. And I think the devil's in the details here more so than anything else, and the details are maybe self-incriminating. So a bit self-incriminating there. So we're not gonna get too deeply into the and I think that's why I was avoiding the details, because the details of this are definitely very self-incriminating. It's not like the other one where it's like light, where I'm talking to an actual person, and this is about me. About me. I don't want y'all feeling weird about me or anything, but also I haven't had sex in many years. It's been almost 4 years, bro. Isn't that wild? I think coming off of like this time period of my life, it was weird for me. Just that we're not doing that anymore. Not sex stuff. We're not doing that anymore. But I kind of had to rework my system, basically. I had to rework how I was operating. Because if I kept operating the way I was at, I was gonna hurt myself. Mostly mentally and emotionally. I don't mean physically. I don't do, unsafe stuff when it comes to that type of, situation. But I just mean mentally and emotionally. And that gets back to the heart was never protected. The heart was never protected. Part. It's like during that time period of my life, it was more about mental anguish and what was going on, and emotional anguish, what was going on in my life, and I was trying to justify a lot of sketchy behavior, but also a lot of things that shouldn't have happened before that. So yeah, that's we can actually leave it at that. I think it's just a lot of things that happened shouldn't have happened. I will admit to that much, but beyond that, I wouldn't say anything else about it. Like I said, the details are incriminating. We don't really need to get into details at all, but and not like legally. I didn't do anything illegal. What? No, I didn't really do. I didn't really do anything illegal. Uh, Not really. No, not really. No, we could say that. Yeah. This one's easier than I kind of got it talked up to the fact that a lot of it, if I was talking about details, then I would have to kind of say things that we're talking about themes. I think we did a good job talking about the themes of the piece and what's going on. And I think the next part is going to be a lot more interesting than this part was, because I think the next part is where we're going to kind of get into the meat and potato. And if there are any details that would come out, then they both probably come out in the next part, more so than this part. This part we're just talking about big general themes that people can relate to. Like I said, when it comes to darkness, we're talking about moving under the covers of darkness. We're talking about being stealthy. We're talking about people not knowing things. We're talking about fucking. A lot of fucking. A lot of fucking. But at the same time, we're also trying to come to terms with what it is that happened. Chronologically speaking, in my life, the dark came before the light. So there's dark, and then light happened after that. Light is a very recent piece. Like what I'm talking about in light is really like recent history. And dark is years ago. Like I said, you can probably tell because I said like I haven't had sex in a very long time, so it's like you haven't had sex, then what's this about? It must be about the past at that point, right? And light is like a very like recent history type thing. So yeah, I hope that clears it up. Clears up something. And if you're listening to this in a conceptual, like if you know me deeper than, certain people might hear this and be like, oh, I don't think those people are listening to this though, for what it's worth. Nor do I care if they do. Like if I'm putting out there, public knowledge, public knowledge. So if you do have a context to this, then there you go. If you don't have a context for it, then you shouldn't have a context for it. And most people do not have a. I think we count maybe 5 people have a context where they can make sense of this. But even then, they probably wouldn't. They probably wouldn't, which is, I guess, the funny part about all of this to me is that I'm telling a story for me, very much out in the open, but it's very. The words are very vague, and it doesn't give out too many details. And in fact, if you read it through and you didn't realize it was about sex, you might think it was about something else. I don't know what else you would think it was about, but maybe just secrets in general. I'm telling you to put it into the context of sex because that's what I'm talking about. But if you wanted to be more vague about it, completely vague about it, you could just tell this is about secrets. It's about moving to the darkness. It's about, not necessarily trying to move to the darkness either. It's just, it had to be this way. And I think the idea is that it had to be this way. And that's the idea I'm trying to present, is that it had to be this way in this situation. Why? Well, I couldn't tell you that off the top of my head. And honestly, I look back on these days and try to work through it. Every couple of days, I'll try to, not every couple of days, maybe a couple of like years or so, I'll try to sit back and say, what the fuck were you doing, bro? The fuck was all that shit? Why would you put yourself through that? Why would you put yourself through all that shit? The answer is I don't know. I think I was drinking too much. That goes back to work. Like I said, the whole album is just like a conglomerate of stories that kind of, when you put them all together, you might have a kind of sense of a person, the elementalist being me. But at the same time, each individual story is its own story. When you put them all together, in terms of, you kind of get a sense of a person, I think. And that person is the elemental. That person is the combination of all these ideas, all these elements, all these maybe powers, if you want to say powers. I'm almost thinking like they're like powers that we're talking about. You know, dark, the objectivity, you know, of being able to say that all these things happen and I'm working through them. I think that's a superpower in and of itself. Just being able to say, yeah, all these things happen, but we're the elementalists. We put these things together, we work forward, we move forward, and we use them to our ability, the best of our abilities, right now to move forward and to be a better person overall. That's what the elementalists is about. In some sense, that's what the elementalists is about. The album itself, the concept of the album is that all these things happen, um, but and some of them are bad, some of them are good, most of them are bad. But we use these stories to move forward. We use all these kind of elements now to move forward. But you know, life to move forward, move safely, move elegantly, move consistently, and move with confidence. Move with confidence. You know, a lot of it has to do with the confidence of it. You know, it's a fun thing. Talking about this album as a whole. And like I said, I'm gonna have an episode where we kind of put everything together, piece together what the elementalist is and what it isn't, and maybe kind of make sense of it all together. And I think that might be the one where I talk about the actual poem, the elementalist. I think that's a nice, the intro piece of it. I think that's a fun way to kind of introduce the idea of what it is we're talking about. Because that piece is very much about the combination of everything and what that looks like when it's all together. When it's all said and done, right? And you kind of tell the elementalist is like, it's like they're born, and that piece at the end of it is like skip almost, if you will. Kind of like a dude, and he's just the being that got created, and they were talking about it, and he's like writing. He asked for a pen and paper and a desk, and then they're like writing, and the person's looking over their shoulder like, oh shit, you know? But yeah, it's like we're writing down stuff. But writing it down means that we've already been through it, right? This is like past stuff that we're writing about now, right? So it's kind of a fun idea to think about in that way. But yeah, the elementals itself is kind of like a very broad topic, and we'll get into that. But this one was a lot of fun to talk about so far. I had a good time. I hope you had a good time too. Hope we all have a good time, right? It's very easy for me to talk about it. I thought it would be weirder to talk about it in this context. Like I said, the devil's in the details. If I was talking about the details of it with somebody, it might take a bit longer to kind of get through than this. But it's just easy. It's only 50 minutes long. I've only been talking for 50 minutes about it, bro. What do you mean? Only 50 minutes? Wow, what a concept. That's still a long time. But yeah. Thank y'all for listening to the first part. I had fun so far. Hopefully I continue to have fun in the second part, but we'll get to that when we do, which will probably be later today. I might just have some water, eat some food, fast for a bit, and jump right back into the podcast and try to knock it all out in one day while I'm on the topic of it. But for now, thank y'all for listening, and we'll be right back. Not in my time, but in your time. And we'll be right back with the second half of the episode. Stay tuned, folks. This is where things get interesting. If they were going to get interesting, they would have gotten interesting in the later half of it, when we literally have to talk about individual words and say, well, what does that mean in the context of the piece? And I think that's where maybe some more details will come out. But for now, talking about the themes. The themes are big and broad, and I think they're fairly understandable why they're that way. Because this is a public piece of thing. It's public work. It's stuff that I want people to read and understand. I don't want to have people having some weird ideas about me moving forward after listening or reading my art at all. So yeah, that'll do it for me. This part of it, and we'll be right back. Love y'all. Bye. Alright, welcome back to part 2 of the podcast. If you're just tuning in, though I don't know why you would just be tuning in the middle of the podcast, go back and check out the rest of the episode. This is going to be more focused on the words on the page. It's the part where we get into details about how I say things more so than what I'm saying. Like I said, the first part of the podcast is usually devoted to the themes and what I'm saying, and the second part is more so trying to focus on how I get those points across and the individual words I use more so than the actual what I'm talking about. So let's try to jump right back into it then. Starting at the top, we're on Campfire again. I really do like this piece. I think the flow of it is pretty nice. And it's also telling you a story about just hanging out. Nothing really happens here, you know what I mean? We don't really get a sense of anything happening. It's more like a scene. It's more like a picture I'm trying to paint of people just hanging out. So it's very visual. Sit around and watch the smoldering flame bound around lighting the space. Huddled under the stars, bellies full as they can be. Very visual aspects of it. Like you're outside, probably flame bound around, lighting the space. So the flames are lighting the space. Huddled under the stars means you're outside. Sky full of stars. Belly full as they can be. Some people like relaxing. They're just chilling. Poking smoke in the air, stars overhead, and I can't see your faces until the flames reveal them again. Again, a very visual thing that we're talking. So this is really painting a picture more so than telling a story, and I like that because it's generally setting the scene for the whole piece. Like it's very much like we're outside. It's dark. It's very dark, even if you want to say that. Like the flames is the only thing lighting the space. Basically, is what I'm trying to get across. Because there wasn't no flame, you'd be in complete darkness. But because there is flame, uh, you know, and I can't see your face until the flames reveal them again. Meaning that unless you're in the light, I can't see who you are and what you're doing. I can't see what you're doing. I barely can't see anything. You know, you sit around and recount the ways life led us astray. And that night, I felt connected to you in the strangest way, as the flames had you phasing in and out like a ghost. That line is very interesting. It's a very long line too. We sit around and recount the ways life led us astray. That's very much saying we're talking about stuff, you know, life led us astray. We're talking about stuff that happened that might be a bit, what I'm looking for. I don't know, but we're talking about stuff that's not necessarily everyday stuff to talk about. We're talking about the situations that might have gone poorly for us, more so than stuff that maybe has gone well. And that night I felt connected to you in the strangest way, as the flames had you phasing in and out like a ghost. Again, a very visual aspect of it. And it's like the idea is that there's a flickering of the flame, and you're phasing in and out like a ghost. It's like we're talking about past stuff, and everyone around the fireplace is basically a ghost. the way things are phasing in and out, because we're talking about the past, so the ghost motif kind of makes sense here as well, because we're talking about the past, talking about stuff that already happened. We're not talking about the future. We're not talking about our dreams. We're not talking about our wants. We're talking about stuff that had already happened to us. So again, this, like I said, this piece kind of sets the scene for the rest of the poem, because, like I said, everything that's happened here has basically happened in the past. This is about stuff that has already happened. So we're talking about ghosts. We're talking about recount the ways life led us astray, and that also should give you the imagery of we're talking about the past. We're talking about stuff that has already happened. Could have been the fire, but night is the time of secrets. That line is like, we're very comfortable. We're around the campfire, and that kind of allows for us to say things, you know, in a very comfortable. It's very comfortable. I'd say it's very like, you gotta be really close around the campfire. It's not like you're yelling from somebody across the room. You're literally if you're at the campfire, you're basically sitting around the campfire so that you can feel the heat and the warmth of the campfire. You know? So we're all very close in that setting. So it could have been the fire, but night is time of secrets, meaning could have been the fire while we're talking that comfortably and being that close, but night is also the time of secrets. So night is when these secrets would come out, because night is when you can freely talk about secrets, and night is when a lot of the secrets maybe were created as well. The night is the time of secrets, meaning both the creation of, but also the availability of them to be able to be talked about freely. So both those ideas is what I'm trying to get across there. Could have been the fire, but darkness is the time of secrets, and we spoke of them in hushed tones in the downtime between the lips that revealed it. That line, I talked about the line a lot in the first piece, because that's like a key line of this idea, is that could have been the fire, again, but darkness is the time of secrets, and we spoke of them in hushed tones. Darkness is the time of secrets, so we're reiterating that last point, but night is the time of secrets. And I think the darkness is the time of secrets, and we spoke of them in hushed tones in the downtime between the looks that revealed us. So, in the downtime between the looks that revealed us, meaning that in between the time that we're not being revealed is when we are talking. And I think that's crucial, because that image of voices coming out of the dark is more so what we're getting at there. The people who are talking are the ones who are not in the light right now, because we're sharing secrets, you know what I mean? We're talking about stuff that we don't want out there in the light necessarily. You know? We're okay talking about it as long as it's in the dark, because we're talking about secrets. Darkness that night was our shade, and we hid in it best we could. So that last line is very much about, you know, darkness and being shaded and not being able to be seen and hiding, but not necessarily hiding in the sense that we're afraid, hiding from, I guess you could say, I mean, why do you hide? Why would you hide? Reasons to hide are you're afraid, you know, you're ashamed, you know, you might be afraid to get caught. There are a lot of reasons why you would hide, right? You're playing hide and go seek. So I would say we're probably not talking about playing hide and go seek here. Sorry, I had to take a sip of water. We're probably not playing hide and go seek here. Is what I'm gonna say. We're talking about secrets. We're talking about being able to express ourselves freely without being brought out into the light. And not that we're trying to disguise who we are in this situation. It's more so about being comfortable to be able to say things without being seen. So those are two different things. Disguising yourself is not really possible around a campfire. You know what I mean? Like, you're still close enough where you can tell who's speaking, but at the same time, does that person really want to be in the light when they speak? I don't think so. Especially in this situation. That's the idea I'm trying to present. That's the image that I'm trying to bring up. That people are speaking, but not when their faces are revealed by the light. It's kind of a weird concept. That's not how a campfire would really work. Unless you're sitting way back from it, which is also a visually appealing concept. Is that you're just kind of sitting back from the campfire. So you're not really huddled around it, but it does say that we're huddled under the stars, so we're really close to the campfire in this case. You know what I mean? And the light is flickering back and forth, so we're all kind of talking freely, but we're talking freely because we're under a campfire. We're not talking freely in the middle of the day. Because we're under a campfire, the light is limited, it's bouncing around. It's a very interesting space dynamic. Like, the imagery of the space is kind of what I'm trying to paint here, and you kind of get the feeling that this wouldn't happen without it being late night, And that's what it is. Night is a time of secret. You can travel freely at night without people knowing. You can do things at night that you won't necessarily do in the daytime, And that's kind of the idea behind this piece of the poem, but also the whole poem itself, is that when you're at night, you can get away in the darkness. You get away with stuff that you wouldn't necessarily get away with in the daytime or when you're in the light. Let's move on to Hunt. I think that's very self-explanatory. The piece is very visual. It's very all the words on the page are trying to paint this picture of a campfire and friends and the light bouncing around and people talking. That's all they're really talking about. We're trying to paint a scene in that first piece and kind of put that to the context of, or rather, put everything else in the context of that first piece. So when we move on to Hunt, with the moon overhead, you cast your spells. You were hunting that night, so you put on your best gear. So now we're talking about secrets. But now we're talking about hunting as well. Okay, is it hunting or is it secrets? What are we talking about? The answer is both. Words from your tongue, the right ones. You were inside and you can smell the cologne. Hetty. That line is the line that kind of gives us away that I'm talking about maybe a female hunting a man, because you were inside and you can smell the cologne. Hetty. Now you're smelling the cologne and it's heady. If you were putting cologne on yourself, you wouldn't necessarily put on enough. It would be heady. And then it's introducing, you were inside and you can smell the cologne. Now you can smell the cologne. Now that you're inside, you smell the cologne and it's heady. That means that probably somebody else put on the cologne. So you could probably infer that we're talking about a woman hunting a man in that case. You could still taste the fire in your belly. So you had a couple of drinks. It was time to make your move. You pounce. So that piece is fun. I like it a lot. It's very personal, but it's not about me. It's about a story I was told. And yeah, it's very much like an aggressive, maybe an aggressive, person who wants to have some fun, and not necessarily that they have to go out of their way for it, but sometimes you do. Sometimes you have to go somewhere. You have to, make some steps in that right direction. But that doesn't mean you were forceful necessarily. It just means that you set up things where the event would happen. A lot of times you don't really have to do a lot as, a man or a woman. You don't really have to do a lot for sex to happen. It's, it's biological. If two people are in the same room and they're attracted to each other and there's an ability for it to happen, sometimes it'll just happen because there's an ability for sex to happen. Like it's available for it to happen, so it'll just happen. You know what I mean? Like that's just how it works. It's not nothing about to do, forcefulness even. It's just about making the situation happen where two people can be alone and they're attracted to each other and things will happen. You know what I mean? That's kind of what we're talking about. We're not talking about being forceful necessarily. We're talking about setting yourself up to get laid. With the moon overhead, you cast your spells, right? So we're talking about magic. We're talking about maybe an enchantress of some sort. And like I said, we're talking about a female because they set themselves up to be in the room and they smelled the cologne and the cologne was heady. You know what I mean? Kind of, it goes both ways, I mean to say. It's not only one person here who wants this to happen, I think. You were inside and you can smell the cologne heady. And that line kind of infers that the other person put on the man situation, I'd have to say, it was a man's situation, put on a lot of cologne and it was heady. That means that they're really trying to smell good. And that's important. You want to smell good in these situations. You don't want to smell bad. You don't want to walk into the situation smelling bad. But that also means that you were also trying your best to maybe, get laid. And that's okay. Both these people are definitely attracted to each other, it seems like. Maybe one had to, go out of their way for it, but that doesn't mean that, you're not gonna say that both these people actually tried for this to happen. You know what I mean? If it's time to make your move, you pounce. You can still taste the fire about it, because sometimes it takes a few drinks to kind of be a bit forceful for some people. But it's not about being forceful. It's about letting go of your inhibitions. And that's what alcohol does, is my understanding. It's my personal understanding. My own very, very personal understanding is that alcohol allows you to release your inhibition. To maybe do some things that you wouldn't normally do without being a bit under the influence. Sometimes that's not a bad thing, but sometimes you do need to be uninhibited, I would say, to maybe enjoy yourself. I mean, some people are just very uptight. Some people need that extra push, and sometimes it just allow you to relax just enough where you can get into the mood, where you can get into the situation that you might not be able to be the type of person who you need to be to get what you need to get out of a situation without alcohol. I'm not knocking it, what I mean to say, necessarily. Is it always healthy to be this way? Absolutely not. That's easy to say. But sometimes it is. Sometimes you'll do a little bit of booze, a beer or two, maybe some liquor to kind of get in the mood. And I would knock nobody for that, because, like I said, I enjoy having sex. I enjoy it. And I've definitely been that person before who has been uninhibited because of alcohol. So I get it. Do I feel like I need to be that person? No, absolutely not. I don't need alcohol to be remotely horny. That's just a personal. That's a running theme for me, really. Oh Lord, is it ever? But yeah, so that's what Hunt is about. Not really related to me necessarily, but you could kind of get the sense that it's a personal story of mine. But let's move on to what I think is the fun half of the piece. What we do in the shadows. We hide, we touch, we love too much. We drink, we sup, we fill our cup. So, we drink, we hide, we touch, we love too much. That is kind of very physical. We're talking about bodies hiding. I'm talking about bodies touching. We hide, we touch, we love too much. That is very much talking about, the idea that it's kind of like you're in the closet. You're in the dark somewhere. You're hiding. You're touching. You love too much. We drink. We sup. We fill our cups. So we drink. We sup. And sup means we eat in this case. We fill our cups. We drink some more. Right? We drink. We sup. We drink some more. We drink. We sup. We fill our cups. We drink. We eat. We drink some more. Basically, is what we're saying. So it's also like we love too much. We fill our cups. Those are the same idea. We sing, we dance, and then we prance. I think that's a very straightforward as well. We're talking about singing, dancing. We're talking about a celebration. We're talking about partying. But also, and then we prance. So dancing is one thing. Prancing kind of gives you the idea. It's a lot more playful. It's a lot more like prancing. Prancing is prancing is such a fun word. Because it doesn't really have meaning beyond, I think, walking in a funny way, but I think you kind of get the idea that prancing around is kind of like we sing, we dance, and then we prance. It's like dancing and prancing are almost similar. I think prancing is a lot more playful. I think it's a lot more fun, just in terms of not the word itself. And the word itself is way more fun, but I mean, just the idea of prancing around is fun. Like we're having fun. And then it says, we play all day and never pray. We'll never pay. Just lay and lay until we are flayed. So those string of words is like rapid fire. We play all day and never pray. We'll never pay. Just lay and lay until we are flayed. So it's like we're just gonna keep fucking until we can't anymore. It's basically what we're talking. We play all day and never pray. You never pray. Why would you pray? You're not gonna stop fucking to pray, are you? That's kind of weird. First of all, that's kind of weird. Second of all, don't do that. Don't do that unless you're in like a very religious setting and the other person is also very religious and you had planned to take a pray break in the middle. Just don't. Wouldn't that kill the vibe? I feel like that would definitely kill the vibe for me. If someone, we're having a good time and you stop to take a little prayer break or whatever. It's like, it's noon, gotta get out the carpet to pray to Allah. Don't do that. Just finish your business. Allah can wait. He can probably wait. He's chilling out. He's watching you. He's probably, if he's up there, he's watching you. He understands. Okay, you're busy. Why would you stop? Kill the whole vibe. Pull out a prayer mat. That's kind of crazy, but you don't even need a prayer mat to pray in, a religious, most religions, I would say, like Christianity. There's probably like some precedent for like pulling out a prayer mat and putting it down and taking the steps and the time out of your day to do so is probably important. I understand that part, and I'm not knocking. I don't mean to mock anybody who, is religious for that. I think it's a very interesting concept that you do have to take the time out of your day to get the mat out, put it down, make space, and it helps you maybe get into the mood and to concentrate on what you're doing more so than just being able to throw your hands up and pray openly. Or maybe a lot of times you don't have to throw your hands up. You just send a little prayer up to. It's very different religion to religion is what I mean to say. So when we say pray, we're not doing none of that. We're not pulling out the prayer mat, but we're also not just holding up our hands to the Lord and saying, thank you, Jesus, for this lay. We're just doing it over and over again until we are flayed. Meaning, kind of like, we're going to keep going until somebody stops. So, literally, there's some intervention happening. We're going to keep doing it. There's nothing to do about it. Or will the righteous comfort me, or will they let me just go free? That line is very much kind of plays into that prayer aspect of it, where we're doing something we maybe shouldn't be doing, but are we? What is righteousness in this case, and what are we doing wrong? Well, if you look at the Bible, if you look at the words on the page in there, maybe you can find some things that might be wrong with the situation. Depending on what text you read and who you follow, what sect you follow, there may be explicit things that, sex before marriage and all that good stuff. Premarital sex might be something that you shouldn't do based upon the sex or, the words on the pages of the book that you choose to believe, choose to follow. You may be doing something wrong. So, or will the righteous come for me, or will they let me just go free? That part is kind of just like, are you gonna let me do my shit or what? Are you gonna mind the business or what? I don't know about righteousness. I would say it's not a topic I really like talking about too much. I would say righteousness implies some body of work giving you power, some piece of fabric giving you power over other people to say what is right and what is wrong. I think that is not it. I feel like you should live your life. I feel like you should do whatever you feel is the right thing to do, and I feel like that's how you should live. Whether or not that impedes on other people's lives is important to me. Now, I say if it does impede on somebody else's life, then you shouldn't be doing it. Simple as that. It's the wrong thing to do. But in this piece, where we're talking about the piece, what we do in the shadows, we hide, we touch, we love too much. We drink, we suck, we fill our cups. Those both things. We love too much, we fill our cups. We drink a lot, we fuck a lot. We sing, we dance, and we prance. We're having a good time. We play all day and never pray. We'll never pay. Just lay and lay until we are flayed. So we'll never pay. That aspect of it, we're saying we're never gonna, unless you stop us, we're not gonna stop. Why would I stop? Why would I stop? It feels good. It feels good. Why would I stop doing it? Why would I ever stop doing it if it feels good? I'm not hurting anybody. Really, I'm not. None of your business. I'm not hurting you. You want me to stop because you have some, like I said, the righteousness of it is, it's written down somewhere that this is wrong. That's basically what it is. It's written in a book somewhere that this is wrong. But that's not my idea of what's right and wrong. It's about what you think is right and wrong. So maybe you should mind your business? Question mark? Alright. I don't mean to antagonize anybody, but some people deserve to be antagonized, especially when it comes to stuff like this. So if you feel antagonized about it, maybe look inside yourself and see why, and try to figure out why you feel that way. More so than trying to figure out why I am doing the things I'm doing, maybe you should try to look inside yourself and figure out why you feel the way you do is my thought about it. Maybe going back to that whole questioning your beliefs about sex and what's right and what's wrong about it. Because honestly, at the end of the day, it's really none of your business what other people do in their private downtime. And the fact that there is such stigma about it is weird, but also suspect. To say the least, it's a bit suspect. Okay, the day darkness took over. So, we're talking about a lot of things here. This is back to the storytelling part, where, like I said, this part is very personal. I reached out to the void. I was lonely then, lonelier than I ever was before. So we're really talking about I, which is, I guess you can say me, but not necessarily. But come on. I reached out to the void. I was lonely then, lonelier than I ever was before. The dark had already crept in at that point, I think, so I told myself I was only doing what was natural came naturally. That whole piece is, the repetition there, I was lonelier than lonelier than I ever was before. So I told myself I was only doing what was natural, came naturally. That repetition is definitely like you talking to yourself, trying to make excuses for yourself, but also trying to explain it to yourself what happened. And that lonelier than I ever was before. That part is like so lonelier than I've ever been. So I was only doing what was natural, came naturally. Those two lines are very, very important because I think it is the stressing of the loneliness and what can naturally happen. You know what I mean? Like I said earlier, if you put two people in the room and they're attracted to each other, things are gonna happen sometimes. You know, especially if there's alcohol involved. Not necessarily necessary. It's not. It shouldn't be. But sometimes it definitely don't hurt. A couple of drinks don't really hurt nothing. You know what I mean? In the situation you're talking about, it definitely wouldn't hurt. You know? I found the void and it was lovely, comforting fun, just like playing Russian roulette with a loaded gun. So, that line there's a lot going on in that line. I found the void and it was lovely, comforting, fun, just like playing Russian roulette fully loaded. So if you know what Russian roulette is, you're not supposed to play with a fully loaded gun. Russian roulette is basically you take a gun with, one of those spinning magazines, one of those spinning cartridge holders, you spin it and then you put the gun to your head and you pull the trigger and the winners and the losers are definitely, you can tell who wins and who loses real quick, I think. If you're playing a game of Russian roulette, there's definitely a winner. If you play to the end, there's definitely a winner and there's definitely a loser. However, if it's a fully loaded gun, that means that the first person who doesn't loses. Everyone loses in that case. Whoever goes first loses for sure. But you're only supposed to have one bullet and maybe like a 6-chamber gun, so you basically have a 1 in 6 chance to be the person who dies every time you pull the trigger. And like I said, you're supposed to spin it every time. I think it's not just supposed to be a 6-shot game necessarily. It's literally you spin it and shoot. So it's not supposed to be a game where it's 6 shots, So I guess you could play it that way without spinning it, but eventually someone's definitely gonna get shot in the head. As opposed to, I think the idea behind it is you just spin it, and depending on how many bullets in there, you have a non-zero, always a non-zero chance of getting shot in the head, but also a non-zero chance of not getting shot in the head. That's the point. If it's a fully loaded gun, that doesn't work. That's not the game. But I found the void was lovely, comforting, fun, just like playing Russian roulette fully loaded. So I mean, we're gonna hurt here. For sure, we're gonna hurt. There's no winning in Russian roulette with a fully loaded gun. Is what I mean to say. So we're gonna get hurt here. And then the void reached out to me, bathed me in the dark, covered me in the veil. That part, it's a very visual thing. It's like we're literally covering ourselves in a cloak and moving freely. And then the veil starts off, and shrouded in my armor, I was free. So now we're just kind of just moving wherever we need to move. I traveled wherever, next line, did whatever, saw just enough, lived life rough, right? And honestly, if you really must know, there was a sort of peace there. And the peace I'm kind of talking about there is, you can tell, sort of peace. Like, what does that mean, right? That's loaded in and of itself. But a sort of peace there, meaning freedom was like freedom to do whatever I wanted. Basically, was allowing me peace. because I was able to do whatever I wanted, I felt like I was at peace. Is that a complete peace? Absolutely not. Could it be a complete peace? Absolutely not. Should it be a complete peace? Absolutely not. But did I feel a bit of peace in that situation? You could say I felt a bit of peace in that situation. And yeah, this is where things kind of give you the idea that this didn't really go well for me. So, control over the things that mattered. The heart isn't protected, the heart isn't protected, the heart isn't protected. So, we're kind of, and this part is two different, distinct voices. Control over the thing that matters, like in the front. That's like a big voice. And then the reminder in the back is that the heart isn't protected, the heart. Those are whispered. And when I'm doing the piece, like in the actual listenable piece, you'll hear me. I kind of whisper that part really quickly, kind of like an afterthought afterwards. So control of the things that mattered. The heart isn't protected, the heart isn't protected, the heart isn't protected. And the best part was I was free. Again, the heart was not protected, the heart was not protected, the heart was not protected. So that part, and the best part was I was free. We're talking about that freedom to do whatever we wanted to do, but then when going back and saying the heart was not protected, it was like a warning. It's like, engine light on, basically. There's like a beeping, a kind of like a nagging noise in your car saying, hey, check engine light, check engine light, check engine light, check engine, check engine, check engine, check engine, check engine, check engine. You should really be checking the engine, bro. Come on. But the consequences continue to be the heart was never protected, the heart was never protected, the heart was never protected. But the consequences continue to be. So we're definitely kind of looking back and saying, I had control. It was really great. The best part was I was free. I was doing whatever I wanted. But now I gotta deal with the consequences of it. So looking back on it, this is a past tense type beast. And shrouded in my armor, I was free. I traveled wherever, did whatever, saw just enough, lived life. So we're looking back on this time period, this concept of what it was I was doing in this piece, which, as I've said many times before, this is all sex. We're talking about sex. A lot of sex happening. But also, this is not also about sex, because sex, like I said, sex is a physical thing. Now we're dealing with matters of the heart. Now we're dealing with, problems that arise afterwards. So now, if I'm saying two things, I'm saying we had a lot of sex, but what does the heart feel about that? Do I care? Do I care now? Presently, yes. Before, when it was happening, I ignored all that shit, is what happened. Control over the things that matter, the heart isn't protected. Like that check engine light is on, but I'm ignoring it till I have to deal with the consequences, but the consequences continue to be now, which is more discussed in the essays, I think. And the essays are a lot more straightforward when I talk about stuff like this. In the essays, it's a lot more straightforward. It's not poetic language, not as poetic and, cryptic when I talk about it in the essays. All the essay stuff is very much I'm telling you what happened. Not, this maybe kind of sort of happened to me, but also at the same time, what am I talking about? But also, yes, it did happen to me directly. But you don't know that, because I'm talking about the veil. What's the veil? Well, the veil is the armor I covered myself in. So what does that mean necessarily? And showered in my armor, I was free. So that part is literally, then the void reached out to me, bathed me in the dark, covered me in the veil. So just like playing Russian roulette, fully loaded gun, that is kind of like a death scenario, right? So the void kind of represents death. It's more of a spiritual death I'm talking about here than an actual physical death, because I'm still alive to write this, I guess. And even the aspect of, being able to say I reached out to the void. If the void is kind of like a death, like I said, playing Russian roulette with a fully loaded gun, if the void is like a death, then that's like, excuse me, probably like a physical, not a physical death, but a mental, emotional, spiritual death. Every other thing that isn't physical is the other three things that I listed there is probably the death I'm talking about, more so than the physical death. Though playing Russian, just like playing Russian roulette, not we're actually playing Russian roulette, just like it, playing Russian roulette with a fully loaded gun. So it's definitely a death that we're talking about. So in that spiritual death state, like I said, the veil is the void reached out to me, bathed me in the dark, and covered me in the veil. So I was able to literally have the spiritual death and be able to move unnoticed through situations that, whatever it was I was doing at the time, which is to say, having a lot of sex. A lot of it. I can't even tell you how much, but it was an interesting time period for me. I'm not going to tell you where it happened or when necessarily, time period wise, but let's just say there was a lot going on in my life. Let's move on to the last piece. I think we covered that really well. I think the words on the page are jumping out at you, especially that first, that and the piece, the heart is protected, the heart is protected, the heart. That whispering piece, the check engine light is on here. I should have been listening to it, but I definitely didn't. And I think you can get that impression very easily that I didn't. I definitely didn't listen to it. And maybe I should have. But the consequences continue to be. And yeah, there are consequences. There always are. Moving through darkness and doing the stuff that I, did, definitely took its toll. Like, I definitely ended up with PTSD galore. PTSD galore happened because of, and that's literally like what happens when you do the type of stuff I did. But I've been working through that slowly, surely, working my ass off every day. Every day has been a blessing in some way. But more recently, that's what like a recent thing I can say about that. And I think I needed to go through the things that happened to me more recently to get through the stuff of the past. Like, it just put me in a weird space where I kind of had to evaluate things for what they are and kind of say, hey, things are not as bad as they were, but they were also pretty bad before, so what are we really talking about here, alright? And that's more of the talk of on depression, where we're looking back on it and saying, and this is, like I said, that is very straightforward. It's literally on depression and what that means. But idea of that piece is like, and this is all, overlapping themes in my life. Depression and this piece and, kind of a lot of other things that kind of happened to me. It's all kind of overlapping this one very, very long period of my life. Most of my life, even, is what I'm going to say. I said 22 years a slave to depression. And that was from the 22 years is the first year of high school to the age of 36, basically, when I kind of started coming around and saying, hey, what the fuck is this? What the fuck? You know? So that's fun. And that's very recent history, I think. Very recent history for me. That's not like a new, that's still like a very fresh wound that we're talking about right there. So let's move on to the last piece. I think it's a very good piece to end on. It's like a song, kind of like a nice, calm song. Yeah, it's very peaceful. It's very peaceful. It kind of gives you an impression like we're talking about the sun setting over the ocean, and that's a very peaceful time. You know, it's not necessarily a time of stress. It's not supposed to be stressful. It's supposed to be peaceful transitions night, from day to night. And this is what we're talking about. We're not talking about a stressful thing like what happened before. Cover yourself in the veil. We're not talking about none of that. That part is past. That's old stuff. We're talking about a new, more relaxing scenario where the darkness sets in, but it's like a much more peaceful, relaxing scenario here. When the sun sets over the ocean and there's no light to be seen, I'm probably somewhere with my little lantern trying to protect my little light beam. So, the sun is setting over the ocean. And there's no light to be seen, so we're already out of light. I have a lantern. I'm trying to protect my little light beam. And like I said, this is mostly talking about the like grammatically we're talking about the idea that, you know, light means being the light, means not being the type of person who would go out there into the dark and do dark time things. So I'm really trying my best here to not be that person who is the one who will go out there into the dark and do dark time things, right? When the sun sets. And when my little light beam goes out, and it most definitely will, because, you know, it's an energy source. It'll run out of energy eventually. I will try to be the beam myself until I also go no. So without any help on this, me by myself in the darkness, I am going to try my best. This is me fighting till the very end to not be that person, you know, who would be in the dark. I'm going to try to be the beam myself until I also go no. You could tell it's very like light sources are light and dark at play here. Like it's a very visual aspect of it here too. We were talking about the sun setting over the ocean, so the light is slowly draining from the sky and from the world. But I have a lantern. Okay, then the lantern goes out slowly. You know, we're putting gas in it. We run out of gas. That kind of flickers out eventually, and then I'm gonna try to be the beam. But so each one of these sort of situations, night and day would be the longest period. And then I have a lantern, which is not gonna last as long as the whole day, but it'll last a bit of time. But then that goes out, and I'm gonna try to be the beam myself, but I'm probably not gonna last as long as the light source than the lantern was. So I've exhausted all my options here. And when I do run out of light, I'll fight to the very end. So let's say I'm still trying my best here. But when the dark comes crashing in, don't worry about me, friend. So this part is like, okay, I'm gonna be overwhelmed by the dark at this point. There's nothing you can do about that. Nothing you can do about it. It's dark. Dark sets in. It's everywhere. It's a physical thing. And when we're talking about physical things, we're really talking about the idea that it's not mental here. This is not a mental image. This is a very physical. We're talking about light and dark. We're talking about physical light and physical darkness. We're not talking about mental here. We're literally talking about the idea that light is a physical, not physical in the way that you can touch it. I mean physical in the way that it's a part of the real physical world, and you can interact with it. You can, change it, and you can turn it off. You can get away from it. You can wait, and there's no light in the sky, and then it's dark. It's not a concept that's hard to grasp, but it is kind of like an interesting one in the way that we're not talking about anything mental here. We're talking about physical. Don't worry about me, friend. And that's important because, like I said, sex is a very physical aspect of life. It's not something that is. There's a lot of mental aspects, there's a lot of emotional aspects to it, obviously. And for me, that's kind of what I told myself. I told myself at some point, and this is why I haven't had sex in a very long time, because I told myself, I'm only going to have sex with people I like. And that's an interesting concept when you have to tell yourself, hey, I'm only going to have sex with people I like. I'm not going to have sex with people I don't like anymore. And that, in and of itself, put a lot of barricades, more barricades than I thought they would, on how much I would do it and who I would do it with. So that's kind of the interesting part about all this, is that at some point in time, I said, you know what, I'm only having sex with people I like at this point. Which is a lot of people. Don't mind me. That is still a huge amount of people I would do it with. But it limits the situations that I'd be able to get into where I'm getting that close to somebody that I like them enough. Not that saying that right now there's a lot of people that I like, but there are a lot of people I like. I have a lot of friends. So, I have a lot of friends. I have a good amount of friends. That maybe not a lot of friends, but it's all relative to what you think of the world and who you are in the world. I would say I have a lot of friends for me because I'm probably on the loner side of things. I could literally sit in my room all day and play video games and have no problem with that. I'm very much an introvert. At the end of the day, I'm an introvert. I may get out there, and if you see me out and about, you may be mistaken. Especially if I'm at work and, I'm working and I'm talking to everybody and being very sociable. At the end of the day, that is an exertion for me to do that. I enjoy it, so I do like talking to people, but then I have to come home and recharge my batteries by myself. That's what an introvert really is. It's not about being antisocial. It's about, you have to kind of exert yourself. You have to put yourself out there into the world. And I'm not saying I don't enjoy it, being out there in the world. I'm saying when I do that, I have to come home and I have to charge my batteries for a bit. I literally have to be in my room in quiet time for a little bit. And that's the difference between, I would say, an introvert and an extrovert. An extrovert is just a person who's out there, and when it's the opposite for an extrovert. When they're out there in the world doing all this fun stuff, they are charging their batteries. And when they're home alone, that's when they're draining their batteries. Introverts are the opposite. It's that I like being sociable, but at the same time, I'm not necessarily the type of person who is going to enjoy it all day, because I'm going to get tired of it, and then I'm going to want to go home and recharge my batteries. So it's not about being antisocial or social, it's about being social at the cost of my energy running out for that type of situation. If you didn't know that, that's a very interesting concept to kind of play around. So putting that in the context of what we're talking about, which is, sex and who I like and who I don't like, well, it's like I like people, at the same time I don't have a lot of friends in the numeric sense. And if you're talking about an extrovert will look at me and say, how many friends do you have? And I tell them the number, I guess you would say, if there's a number involved. And I tell them, no, they'd be like, what are you talking about? That's not a lot of friends. I have a lot of friends. They'll say, oh, I have 300 friends. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. How do you even know that many people, bro? I say, I have a lot of friends that I would have sex with for me. Like, I like a lot of people that, to the point where I would have sex with them right now. So, that's what I mean to say when I say, the friend aspect of it. Like, I said, I'm only gonna have sex with people I like. Well, I do like a lot of people. I do have a lot of friends for me. Being an introvert, I have a lot of friends for me. And I have an abundance. God bless for that. I have an abundance of friends right now. I don't need more friends, I don't think. I got a good amount of friends. I'm a very friendly person, so I do bring in people who are friendly as well. But like I said, somebody looking at my situation might say, hey, you only talk to like 5 people every day? Maybe? But that's a lot for me because I'm an introvert, like I said. So that's a fun concept to kind of explore introvert, extrovert, and what that means in terms of like liking people. But I digress. Don't worry about me, friend. I'll be safe and sound in my home, just taking in the blight. I'll be safe and sound. Don't worry, friend. Dark, after all, is just the absence of light. So those last 4 lines are saying, I'm very comfortable here. Don't worry about it. I know what I'm doing. I've been here before. I'm very comfortable here. Just taking the blight. Like, it's not a problem for me to be here at all. I'll be safe and sound. Don't worry, friend. Dark, after all, is just absent. That's like a very physical definition of dark. Is that dark and light are literally opposite. Dark is the absence of light. And that's all there is to it. It's not negative, it's not positive. There's no real bearing as to morality here. We're not talking about morality. We're literally talking about dark, the absence of light. And I want to get that point across too. We're not talking about right and wrong here. We're talking about the physical aspects of the dark and the physical aspects of the light. We're not talking about morality. Light does not equal good, and dark does not equal bad in this case. It may be motifs that people use in the sense of, light and dark. Oh, the battle for light and the battle for dark. Oh, angels and demons. Oh, yeah, blah, blah, blah. Shut up. That doesn't make any fucking sense. We're talking about physical elements of the world. We're talking about light, which is being able to see everything around you, and dark, which is where you see nothing. That's literally what we're talking about here. And that's what we should be talking about. We're not talking about morality. Dark is evil. It's not. It's literally an element of the world that there's no sun in the sky, so you can't see anything. There's nothing wrong with dark. There's nothing inherently right with light. You know what I mean? Bad things can happen in the daytime and good things can happen at night, folks. It's just, it is what it is. And don't tell yourself anything differently. Don't be the type of person who really gets hung up on motifs and, oh, the light is gonna save. No, it's not. The dark is gonna do this. No, it's not. It's just a physical element of the world that we live in. You cannot escape it. You really can't. It is what it is. It literally is what it is. There's so many hours of light, there's so many hours of day, every day. Unless you're at the poles, in which case you can have dark for the whole day and light for the whole day. I know how it works. I know my geography and my science better than most people. I get that part. Don't be an idiot about it. Don't be a stickler about the words I'm saying. You don't have to be that way. You don't have to be that way, friend. I love you. I'm telling you, you don't have to be that way. Do better for yourself. There's no reason to be pedantic here. We're talking about a poem with words on a page. I understand that the very idea of talking about words is pedantic in and of itself. I get that part, but you don't have to be that way. Let me be that way about the words that I'm using. You don't have to be that way. Don't think about it so hard. I'm telling you what it's about. It's not about light and dark being metaphors for good and evil. It's not. We're talking about the physical aspects of light and the physical aspects of dark. That's why I feel like people can easily get caught up in these two pieces, light and dark, because light is more than, it's not a love poem. It's not. I mean, ask me about it the other day, and dark is not an unloved poem. You know, there are a lot of aspects of both in both those pieces. You know, especially when I also think about the parties that remind me. It's not about love. Love is all over the place. The whole Elementalist is about love in some form. You know, it's all about love and what it means in terms of like the deeper concepts of. So it's not about love. Love is deep. Love is everywhere in these pieces. You know, it's love of self. It's love of the world. It's love of family. It's love of people who you shouldn't love. It's love of sex. It's love of enjoying yourself. It's love of nihility. You know, the ability of the heart to love is huge. It really is. And I think, so talking about the album cover now, the red, the gold heart is so perfect. And I don't even know how. Like, I literally, like, I saw it and I was like, that's dope visually. And then I went in and I listened to the album and I was like, bro, I gotta go back and kind of give him more props for this at some point for making that album cover what it is, because it's literally like it captures the idea that this is all about love. Everything is about love here. It's about love in different aspects. Like, love is a big part of the Elementalist. And there's physical love, there's love of self, there's love of the world, there's love of family, there's love of, friends. It's all in there in some way, shape, or form. And the cover is so, it encapsulates a lot of that. It captures a lot of that idea. But I just wanted to stress that point about like light and dark. We're talking about the element itself. We're talking about fire. We're talking about water. We're talking about air and earth. We're talking about light and dark. We're talking about the elements. That's why it's the Elementalist. We're not talking about motif. We're not talking about right and wrong. We're not talking about more. We're talking about the physical elements of what it is that, what it is and what they represent. We're not talking about, I mean, not even what they represent, because I'm telling you what they represent, but it can represent good and evil in a very basic, that's like a very basic kind of like, a very almost based in religion type concept that, God is in the sky and the sun and angels and he's gonna come down and, and I kind of talk about that in light, obviously. In lighting, I'm talking about, God's putting the sky open and, that's a very, very, very physical, very, very visual concept. But in that scene, I'm using it to paint the picture of disparity, not necessarily of good and evil, but just the disparity between good and between evil. Like I said, I'm talking about a black and white cookie in that one. I'm not talking about the actual good and evil till the very end, where you can maybe get a sense of that, but we're not talking about good and evil. We're talking about the difference between the two sides of this person. How much it is that they are different, that, we're doing it right down the middle for this person. And even then, it's not about good and evil in that sense. We're talking about the disparity between those ideas. When the lighting split your face in two, we're talking about two completely different aspects of the person in life. So I just want to say that because again, we're not talking about good and evil. We're talking about the physical aspect of light and the physical aspect of dark. I don't want the people to get hung up on, oh, dark is evil because it's talking about sex, and light is good because it's talking about love. We're not. We're not even talking about love in light. There's no love in there. It's really a physical aspect of light and what that means. And what it means to be able to see and have something to follow in the dark. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think that's a good place to end it on. This has been one of my favorites to talk about, honestly. I like it a lot. I like the piece a lot. You know, it's very personal in some ways and very impersonal in some other ways. But for the most part, it's something that I can relate to. I love the idea of it. You know what I mean? And it's an enjoyable thing to talk about too. So, sex is. It really is. I got nothing to say about that. That's not a harsh thing to say about it at all. Sex is pretty enjoyable to talk about because it's fun. It's fun to do. It's fun to think about. It is. All right, that's a better place to end it, I think, than the one before that. Thank y'all for checking it out. This is exhausting. It really is. Talking about this topic in particular is probably one of the harder ones. I thought about it. And it was pretty hard. It wasn't as hard as I thought it would be to be able to kind of like discuss it as a poem. Is a lot easier than talking about it in terms of like just telling someone the story of what happened directly. It's much easier to talk about it in a poem form than it would have been otherwise. So, and it's much easier to talk about it for me writing it out in a poem form. It's easier for me than sitting here and talking about it, maybe with a therapist. You know, maybe putting it out there into the world straight up and saying, "Hey, this is what happened." If I write it in a poem, it's a lot easier for me to digest it. Because I have to sit here and digest it. When I'm writing it out, I really have to sit here and digest it. But it's easier for me to process it and write it out in a poem and go back and read it over a couple of times and say, wow, okay, wow, did this really happen? Wow, okay, yep, there's something to do. Yep, okay, gotta work on that. Yep, okay, cool. And that's what happens when I write. And that's why I like writing. That's why I like discussing things as well about writing. Because it helps me process what it is I'm writing and why I'm writing it. So, this podcast is very therapeutic for me. It really is. I didn't realize it would be this much, but it is nice to be able to have a reason to process stuff deeply and being able to sit down and talk about it in a space where I feel comfortable, which is literally the edge of the world that is so small for me right now, but also big because it's on the internet, so everyone can see it, but it's small in the sense that I'm here in my room on my own personal page posting stuff about the past, about stuff that has happened to me. But it's like a small YouTube page. It's a very small setting that I'm in right now. In the great large scheme of YouTube, and in the great larger scheme even of the internet as a whole. Obviously, it's a very big concept, the internet, but my page itself is a very personal space for me where I can post stuff and, just talk about stuff. So, yeah, that's it. We're done. We're finally done. Next week, I might just go straight into Fire, and then the Elementalists, and then we'll be done with the actual album itself, which will be nice. It'll be kind of like a rewarding number itself, being able to get through all that, put it out there, and say, I'm done with it again. Right? Yeah. I think I'm going to do that. So, yeah, expect Fire next week unless, something weird happens and I want to talk about something else. But I'll probably do that next week. And yeah, thank y'all for listening. It's been a while. This is going to be a longer episode, obviously. We're at 2 hours of recording time on this one. I wasn't expecting it to go that long for the second half, but hey, sometimes it does. Sometimes it be like that, yo. It be like that, dog. It do be like that sometimes, bro. So yeah, I'm gonna have a beer, cool off on the patio for a bit, and then I don't know. I'll probably play video games for the rest of the day at some point, or I might just keep up on storm news because the world is very stormy right now. That's a fact. Can't do nothing about that. But in the meantime, I'll see you next week. This has been fun, very fun. But yeah, it's time to go. Time to go do something else with my day. Yep. Alright. See ya. Love ya. Bye.